Okay, here we go. We're going to get into kind of a more in-depth intro to Animate while we're creating a ball bounce. Ball bounce is what you're going to do in any animation class, animation 1, 2, in college, out of college. It's a good standard for understanding how to apply a lot of these principles that we just learned about in animation. For example, a ball bounce can include squash and stretch, exaggeration, arcs, slow in and slow out, timing, so many things. You can even give ball appeal in a way. So here we go. We're going to get started with this. Now I'm at my basically homepage of Animate, and what I want to do is go to New File. And I'm going to create a standard video. I'm going to change this to 1920 by 1080. That's going to be the standard that we work with for our class. 24 frames per second and ActionScript 3.0. Go ahead and hit create. And here we go. All right. So I've got my stage here. And what I want to do is get rid of the I can get rid of the white later, but what I want to do is first create a layer down here for a path. Got my path. I renamed it path. It's going to be very important that you get used to naming your layers because there's no icons here that show you what's there in that layer like there is with Photoshop or even Illustrator. So this is a path right here, and notice that when I squeeze this up, my stage did not squeeze up with it. So what I'm going to do is go up here and go to Fit in Window. And what I want to do is use just a simple brush tool for now. And the brush tool I'm going to use is a paintbrush tool. So I don't think I have that here in my toolbox. So I'm going to hit this and I'm going to grab this. Here's my paintbrush tool. I'm going to drag it over onto my classic brush tool. The reason I'm using my paintbrush tool is because it is a stroke. And a stroke is basically just a line. And for this, I just want to create basically a guide, just a reference point on how my ball is going to bounce. Okay, this ball is going to have to bounce at least 3 times in this stage, right? So you have to plan it out just right. You also want to make sure you have enough room that you have space to apply the effects of squash and stretch and exaggeration and arcs and all of those things. So here we go. The way this is going to look, it's going to be much like a typical ball bounce. Here's one illustration by the Angry Animator. He's got, kind of shows you the motion path, and this guide is what we're going to kind of create, this little dotted line back here. And then we're going to create a ball that's going to follow along that path. And so you'll see from your examples that you created, this has arcs in it, definitely has arcs. It has a little bit of slow in, slow out as it goes slow up and then fast and then slow up and then fast again. And so it has a slow in and a slow out. And that's what we want to create. There's also the squash and stretch aspects of this where it stretches more as there's more velocity going downwards, and it squashes more as the impact is going to be heavier. And then it stretches a little bit, and that's kind of part of the exaggeration part of this animation. And it makes it like we saw in the videos, more realistic. It's not as static. It's more something that we can understand, like a true bounce is going to really have that flex in the ball. And so the physics of this is going to be somewhere between a water balloon and a bowling ball, right? Not so much squash that it's going to be just plop on the ground, and not so much rigidness that it's just going to like just knock and hit the ground and that be it. Okay, so we do want to create the physics that will definitely show off these principles that we've gone over. So that's kind of where we're going to go with this particular animation. In the first part, we just need a guide, and that was a long kind of drawn out way of saying let's make a guide. And I've got black for my color here. If you want to change a different color for your guide, you can make it something different and choose a different color. Black's fine with me. And I'm just going to, with my mouse, doesn't have to be anything fancy, I'm just going to bounce this guy 1, 2, 3, and I can do another. I just Controlled C, decided I didn't like that. 2, ooh, it might take some time. 1, 2, 3, maybe I'll add in another 4, and it can roll off later. So that's pretty cool. That works out pretty good. Now, because this is a stroke, if I decided I wanted to adjust this in some way, I'm going to just kind of hold click on this and go to subselection, and I can, with the subselection tool, you can kind of move things. It's a lot like Illustrator. You can move these control points over to kind of get a better arc. You also have these handles that you can move around to kind of change the look of the curve as well. And so if it's too much curve, not enough curve, you can kind of adjust these to give that effect. So I kind of like how this is coming from way up high. Kind of really exaggerate that a bit. If I wanted this to be higher, I can stretch this up. Oops, I grabbed the whole thing. Grab one little point, and you can kind of stretch certain points up instead of the whole thing. So you can really just customize this if you're not the best at drawing. This is just a guide. This is a good reference point. Doesn't mean that we have to follow it exactly. But if you do plan on following exactly, then you really do want to make sure that your guide is in good shape here. And it's also good practice to kind of work with your different tools here in Animate. So I'm kind of liking the way this looks. It's not perfect, but it's good. What I want to do now is create some sort of guide. Now notice that my ball it bounces all pretty much on the same plane right here. To make that more visible, what I'm going to do is go to View and go to Rulers and make those show up there. And I want to drag down a guide from these rulers. And so I'm going to click on the ruler and drag down, and I can kind of see now, yeah, I'm dragging it down to the bottom of my arcs right here, because that tells me that, hey, my path is kind of all in the same plane, and it's not like bouncing off into the background. Like I don't need my ball to get smaller as well. It could be something that you experiment with later if you want to, but for this purpose, I just want this to be the basic ball bounce. So let's go with that. Sometimes that's enough than trying to overcomplicate things right from the start. So I've got this started here. I've got a guide that kind of shows me where my ground line is and to make sure that it's all pretty well lined up good. I want to create a ground layer now, and I'm going to create a layer by going up to this and down here and going to New Layer, and I'm going to double click on that and title this Ground and hit Enter. I don't want my ground to cover up my path, so I'm going to grab this layer, clicked on it, and drag it down below path. That I'm going to use a shape tool, my rectangle tool here, and I'm going to change the fill to a ground color, whatever that might be in your mind. And I'm going to turn the stroke off because I don't necessarily need a stroke or an outline for this. So I'm going to go to this option right here that has the line through it. And I'm going to simply click out here and drag outwards this way, out and down. So it covers up the bottom part of my arcs and it covers up the bottom part of my stage. So there we go. Now it doesn't matter that it goes off the stage because like most stages, you don't see what is off the stage. And so this doesn't really matter, whatever's hanging off the edges. So that is pretty much done. Now what we want to get into is creating a ball. So I'm going to create a new layer. Go to new layer here. I'm going to double click on my layer and call this ball. And I want the ball to be on top. So I'm going to drag it up to the top. And I'm going to choose a different shape. I'm click and hold on this rectangle tool. Go to the oval tool. And for this, I'm going to drag out a ball. I'm going to hold shift and I'm dragging it out. And that's a pretty decent sized ball. The problem is that my shape tool is still set up for my ground. And so now I have the same colored ball as I do with ground, which isn't going to be good because if my ball should bounce down here, then it will disappear. Now, if I select my ball layer again, I can see it and drag it back up. I want to change the color of this, and let's do that by applying a gradient to it. So on the fill, I'm going to go down and I already have some preset gradients. There's a red one, a green one, a blue one, a rainbow one. That doesn't really work well with a typical radial gradient, but something I want to kind of make this have some depth to it, right? Because adding depth to this could also include something like a solid drawing, right? Having kind of a more 3D aspect to it. So I'm going to choose something like this. This is simple red ball, and I'm going to click off of it. And what I do want to do is click on this, my transform tool, and click and hold. I'm going to go to gradient transform tool. And I'm going to click on my ball. Now I'm going to zoom in on this, and I have some different controls here. This little triangle control is going to direct where that hot spot, that light is going to be. So I'm going to drag that to a place where I want it. This right here is going to tell me how wide that gradient is going to be, so I can stretch it out beyond the ball. So you can kind of customize this. And this little tool right here is going to rotate it. So I can rotate it to where the ball might be highlighted more up towards the top. Maybe that's more natural, like the light outside would be shining typically from above. So this looks like a pretty good adjustment that I made here. I'm going to control minus out so I can go further out. Other ways that you can go in and out is through this tool up here. So these are, that's a good way to kind of customize a simple ball right off the bat. And I've got this ready to go. It's pretty much set up, except I'm going to put this ball, its first frames are going to be out here towards the outside of the frame, maybe just a slight edge right there. I'm going to hand tool and drag this upwards. Try to look and see. This ball bounce is probably going to last a few seconds, right? And so what I want to do is, right now I don't have time. I can't even animate this if I wanted to. So I'm going to lock my path and I'm going to lock my ground. Those things aren't going to be moving. I'm going to go out here, let's say to like 4 seconds, and I'm going to click and drag down. And I'm going to press F5 on my keyboard, or if you right click, what F5 does is insert frames. That means you're opening up this timeline for animation. And so I'm going to go to insert frames, and now I've got a timeline set up for 4 seconds where I can animate anything on this stage. And with that, what I want to do is save this. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to save as. And it's going to save as an animate document, which is going to be FLA. Choose your place in your student drive. and I have a 23, 24 year. Maybe it will open. There we go. And I'm going to create a new folder. This is going to be for animate. New folder, animate. And I'm going to store all of my work that I do on my student drive. Otherwise, you run a big chance of losing everything. So in that folder, I'm going to call this ball bounce. Oops, ball bounce. There we go. And save. Yeah, and I've set up now, and this is all I want you to do. And we'll be ready to start off with some animation next time we meet up. So you saved your work, you got everything set up, and we're going to continue on next time.